What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for another episode of Ranked. Ranked is where I go through a band or else an artist's discography and rank their studio albums or else their singles from worst to best. Of course, it is all just based on my personal preference and opinion, as is really any list that you have out there. So keep that in mind whenever you're watching the video. I don't know how the Muse definitive ranking is supposed to be, but these are my personal opinions. I hope you enjoy the video today. We're going to be going all the way back to 1999 and as recent as 2015 with Drones. There is a new studio album on the way, and thank you to everybody who supported me to make this video possible. There's going to be more updates coming around that soon. But anyways, for now, if you're able to, please support me on Patreon. Videos like this do take a lot of work to make. It's going to be the top link in the description down below. Don't forget to drop a like on the video, and here we go with the very first pick. In my opinion, my least favorite Muse album. I initially gave a lot of praise to this record, so seeing this at the bottom of the barrel might actually surprise some of you. The fact is, it just simply doesn't have much of an allure to it as an overarching album. Where's the staying power of their early work, or even the unique offerings of albums that followed? There's certainly some of that packed into Drones, but not enough to keep it on repeat, with moments like the 10-minute Globalist and the almost cringe-inducing Drill Sergeant Psycho combo present here on the album. The Government and Control are the two main themes on this album. While some of the songs like Dead Inside shine with a refreshing gleam and catchiness while keeping this theme afloat, others sink quickly the more you start to look into them. Now, I don't think this is a bad album at all, honestly. It's just the cheesiest that they've ever put to tape. I absolutely love cuts like the guitar and action-charged Reapers, which is put back to back with the mesmerizing Handler, an extended 1-2 punch that feels like a fresh wave after some of the other parts of Drones. As much as I may enjoy Mercy, it definitely starts to sound more and more like the band's own Starlight over time. In similar fashion, some of their longer and more quiet tunes sound eerily done before, and even the hook-laden Revolt doesn't sound as full of life as it did the first handful of times. A long shelf life has been an important part to Muse's career and staying power, and this album simply doesn't have as much of that. If you had asked me what the worst Muse album was before 2016, I would have told you The Resistance. Easy. As great of a composition as Uprising is, I was sick of hearing it. That, coupled with what felt like an extremely long runtime due to the 3-part Exogenesis finale, just soured me on the whole experience for years, and I just didn't come back to it all that often. After Drones, I spent some time catching up on their discography, and while I can't say that I love The Resistance, it's a far cry from being the mess that I originally saw it as. The title track is a much superior battle cry when compared to Uprising, and Undisclosed Desires moves with the sly swagger of a symphonic piece meshed with modern alternative structures. Bellamy made it clear that there was a political charge to much of the LP, but not all of the album would focus on these themes. Love is another big topic that soars here, and I like the moments that seemingly balance out the two. As a whole, it definitely feels a bit bloated at times, with pieces like Guiding Light seeming a bit outlandish, and of course the Exogenesis trilogy, which has its moments, goes on a bit too long. The idea of more driving pianos and swirling symphonies was an obstacle Muse were bound to run, and they conquered more often than not. I still jam the lush I Belong to You, which sees Bellamy at his most charming, and even MK Ultra, which has some great bass textures and guitar pomp that often goes unnoticed. It may clock in near the bottom of the list, but if anything, that should tell you how many great albums Muse have under their belt. Before the turn of the century, a relatively unknown band from the UK dropped their Radiohead-tinged debut album on small label Maverick Records. Sales weren't exactly huge, but fans definitely started to trickle in and find them more quickly, especially as they played many festivals. They showed off their prog and space rock tendencies, really letting the vocals, pianos, thrashing guitars, and even slower burns shine through. This was the first album that I bought from them after Black Holes and Revelations, and at the time, I was blown away by the heights and momentum that cuts like the noisy Uno and Howling Sober reached. Showbiz still holds up as a great entry into the band's discography, but I really do understand why some people say that the influences were worn a bit too heavily on their sleeves here. The end of the album wanders a bit off course, slowing things down and not really gripping the listener's attention quite the way that some of their later slow moments would, with Overdue obviously being a big exception that balanced out the quiet-loud dynamic perfectly. Muse seemingly have a thing for making every record somewhere between 50 minutes and an hour long, but maybe the debut could have been a bit more concise as they honed and found their sound. To hell with the status quo. The Second Law is a badass dive into a variety of styles that Muse desperately needed to keep themselves from sounding stale after the Resistance. They were on top of the world as alternative and rock stations were still regularly playing cuts from Absolution, Black Holes and Revelations, and the Resistance. So what did they do? They released a slow-lit fuse that divided the fanbase in the form of Madness as the lead-off single from The Second Law. A genuine favorite of mine now, but a song that I initially detested. It's insane to think that it's been over half a decade now since we opened our ears to that for the first time. But that and the rest of this album are something that just get better and better with time, if only you give it the chance to sink in, because it does sound different sonically as a whole. The bassist Chris sings on the chilling battle with addictions that is Liquid State, a total ace up the sleeve that many fans tend to forget, alongside Save Me, the latter giving me the chills with how good its guitar solo is. The deep cuts and the singles are equally powerful if I'm being honest. I sat down with this record and fell in love all over again as Supremacy lights up as the intro, sounding like something straight out of a James Bond flick with those huge staggered riffs and unbelievable falsettos. Animals trickles in with a slick bass line, clean and technical guitars mixed with standout drums, and a fantastic, albeit restrained, vocal performance from Bellamy. Honestly, I even love the closing dubstep and electronic symphony-infused moments unsustainable and isolated system. It's not like the classic but modern Follow Me didn't let us know that a finale like that could be coming. I love pretty much every song on this album, from the funky blast of fun Panic Station, one of my favorite singles that they've ever released, to the Queen-inspired Survival. This thing just rocks. I guess the next three picks must rock even more though. Onwards! The band's chemistry was evident on their debut album, but this is where all the fruits of their labor truly ripened. Origin of Symmetry is a spectacle to behold. It was a step forward with a loud and unwavering hard and prog rock sound that also knew when to keep the listener in suspense. Whether wildly thrashing about on Citizen Erased or exploring cinematic-leaning chaos with Dark Shines, Muse checked off just about every box you could want them to with this LP. One of my earliest loves from the band, Bliss, still holds up with that swelling roar during the chorus, and hyper music still makes you want to violently headbang and scream back the words as the bass pummels and the guitar drives permanently into your memory. The only question is, why aren't we playing this album more? I mean, yeah, it's 15 years old, but it's rare to see an album of this variety age so gracefully. Cue up Plug-In Baby if you've never listened to Origin before, and whenever you love that, because I feel like you will, keep playing the rest. I promise it's worth it. By the time a band's third album rolls around these days, we're all crossing our fingers hoping they didn't completely lose themselves or move to a sound complete opposite of what they originally became known for. It wasn't always like that, and Muse proved that they had much more to do with the sound they found early on in their career. With Absolution, the songs felt more connected than they had before. Not that this had been a problem for me, it's just cool to see how they took the theme of the end of the world and turned it into a masterpiece that just never lets up. Louder songs rule here to help sell the idea of urgency, and it feels like anything but a crutch whenever used throughout the album. Sing for Absolution makes its plea heard loud and clear, as Bellamy's voice sounds stronger than ever, and the band's creativity honestly reaches a whole new peak. Be enthralled by the possessive rage of the small print and Stockholm Syndrome, drop your jaw with the meticulous bass line of Hysteria, and have a moment of silence for the endearing Falling Away With You. A sweet touch and a lyrically tough album. Let's rewind to Hysteria for a second though, because God knows I'm gonna rave about this tune anytime I get the platform to. The band's rhythm section, Dominic and Chris, have always been phenomenal, that is no secret. But from the start, I knew the bass was doing something that I just wasn't hearing in most of rock music. It wasn't just the simple added feature to help add texture to these songs, it was often the star of the show. Hysteria is my favorite damn bass line of all time, and it kills me knowing that playing it on Rock Band is the closest I will ever get to being able to play something like that and feeling like I'm at least somewhat talented. Everything about this song screams tension and suspense, and they really let it all unwind here throughout this classic. Absolution as a whole falls into perfection territory for me, as even though I love all of the albums that I've listed up to this point, I consider them to at least have minor flaws or else things that I personally don't enjoy as much. That's not the case here. It's a progressive, forward-thinking album that was honestly a bit ahead of its time and in its own lane. As we finally climb to the pinnacle of this list, we reach Black Holes and Revelation. But are you starting to notice a bit of a trend by now? We've mainly, since my number 5 pick, been working up from the start of their discography, implying that they got better and better and better with each of their first 4 releases, at least in my opinion, and that seems like something that most fans can kind of agree on, and that is rare. You don't see too many bands that can both keep their sound in check while continuing to grow, learn, and adapt to new styles. Knights of Sidonia changed things for me. As a 13-year-old boy, I heard that song on the radio and completely lost my mind over it. It was my favorite song for ages. I took my mixtape that had it ripped from the radio with me almost everywhere I went. I showed it to all my friends. I played it daily. I couldn't stop. Then I realized I was listening to the radio edit, and I swooned even harder as I loved the extended intro so much that I finally ended up buying the CD Black Holes and Revelations for myself. One of the best musical decisions I ever made. The finesse of Soldier's poem flexes their strength with slow acoustic jams and shows off beautiful backing vocals, while the Raging Assassin fires back as possibly the best drum performance in the band's catalog, with anger-fueled lyrics and guitars to match. This album's added emphasis on atmosphere and storytelling, giving detailed accounts of places, people, and ideas, was incredible. City of Delusion is still one of their most fascinating songs to date, taking on a bit of an electronic style along with the orchestra and hard rock flair. It's just very unique in the best way possible. Take a Bow is cutting ties and dethroning a liar in front of our very eyes, Map of the Problematic roars with a density and style like none other, and the classic Starlight reminds us of the band's heart. Black Hole sounds as stellar now as it did then, and if you haven't heard it in a while, dust off that CD and see what you've been missing. Well, that's that, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to my episode of Muse Ranked, and thank you again to everybody who supported me and made this video possible. If you would like to see other episodes of Ranked, comment down below with the artists and bands that you would like to see that with the most, and upvote some of the suggestions. I will definitely keep those in mind. Anyways, I do hope you enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun making this one and listening through all of the Muse albums. And yeah, let's cut to the outro card. You can go directly to my Patreon page at the top link in the description, or that annotation in the corner of the screen there. You can see my top 10 favorite Muse songs right here, or another Muse album review right over here. All of my social media can be found in the description down below, and other than that, I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV.